Hello, dear ones, and welcome to Subtle Medicine Radio, brought to you by Inner Spark. This is the resource for all things holistic healing, natural living, conscious relating, epic life-changing, and spirituality, all steeped in earth-based wisdom. We're your hosts, Devin.
And I'm Mike.
On today's show, episode 18, we're discussing the many ways shame may show up in the physical body. From posture challenges and chronic aches to diseases such as adrenal fatigue and family lines of cancer, we're going to discuss the energetic and emotional components of these various physical body diseases as they relate to shame. Let's dive in. I'm so excited for this topic.
Yeah.
So just to recap real quick, we've been discussing shame for the last several episodes, and the response has been really amazing. I've heard many people are shifting the way they view shame and hadn't realized their challenges, core woundings, and limiting beliefs were all actually flavors of shame. Shame is really a mysterious, insidious, and shape-shifting emotion. It has many sources, yet when it gets a hold of you, it really latches on and influences the way you view yourself, others, and the world around you. It's deeper than guilt. So it's different than guilt, and it's much deeper. Guilt is an awareness of wrongdoing and then like a sense of remorse. Shame is an internalization of guilt, wherein you believe there's something just inherently wrong about you. It's an internalization of the actions of others. They wouldn't have done or said whatever they did or said if you weren't you. You tell yourself. It becomes a story about you. Shame involves silence, secrecy, a fear of being seen, a fear of expressing, a fear of being found out. It's very isolating. We may be ashamed of things about ourselves or about others with whom we're close because they reflect us after all, right? And if we were better, they would be better, right? Well, no, wrong. That's the right answer. It's wrong. We can't control anyone, actually. We may be ashamed of our bodies and their function or lack thereof and their appearance. In a nutshell, we've constructed like a universal baseline of conduct, action, appearance, and the like for ourselves and assume everyone else knows it too and is fiercely measuring us up against it. Since it's an impossible mark, we're perpetually in conflict with ourselves and ashamed of our shortcomings and how they also influence those around us. It's a multifaceted and nuanced emotion with multiple impacts. The source of all human suffering is shame.
You touched on a few points that I think are really interesting, like how shame at the surface seems to be about shrinking ourselves or diluting our own self-worth, but at the same time there's kind of an aspect of like superhuman powers to it because you're presuming that you can read everybody's minds and know what they're thinking because they're thinking these terrible things about you. And it's like, well, what makes you think that you are even so great that you can, read other people's minds? I forget who it was. Somebody said, stop being so humble, you're not that great. It's like at some point the self-debasing takes on or requires like some kind of insight or mind reading. But I did want to ask you if you could explain something because, as I've said before, your assertion that the source of all human suffering is shame is a very bold claim, and maybe I'm not understanding it completely. So if you're using maybe the word suffering in a way that I'm not used to, because personally, as a Buddhist, a lot of my teaching, meditation, all that is based on the idea of suffering. So it has a very technical meaning to me, and it's something that I've put a lot of thought into. So if somebody uses that in a certain way, it gives me food for thought. So like if I stub my toe, I'm going to suffer a stub toe. Shit happens. And that the phrase shit happens is very core to my philosophy. It's a very esoteric idea, right? But seriously, shit happens, and I'm having a hard time reconciling my belief that shit happens, like a stub toe, and sometimes really shitty things happen to any of us. But yeah, how can I reconcile that with the idea that all suffering is rooted in shame? Because I don't see how shame ties into I'm suffering because I stubbed my toe.
Okay, so suffering to me, and the definition also according to the dictionary, so this isn't just Devon's dictionary, is a challenge, a hardship, a painful circumstance, and to me it goes deeper than a stub toe. So yes, shit happens, and we can either internalize it and derive shame from it, or view it as happening for us. We can use these experiences as triggers to show us how we really feel about ourselves. An accident like stubbing your toe will certainly yield physical pain. And if you're one that has a propensity towards shame already, you may very well internalize this experience. I'm so fucking stupid and clumsy. This is what I get. Or maybe internalize something about the surroundings, right? Like, if I had arranged the furniture better, I wouldn't have stubbed my toe. Basically, there's a way for us to always seek blame. And obviously, in a deeper sense, and away from accidental stubbed toes, I'm referring to the physical suffering we'll endure, whether in our bodies as disease and illness, or in our work, relationships, and other physical, tangible aspects of our lives. Shame is the conscious perception of a wrongdoing, shortcoming, or a way of taking blame. Suffering is a hardship and a challenge. The key here is the internalization and making it a story about ourselves. This then creates immense stress, a new tainted lens for us to view the world through, and creates body armor and habits. And acting from this place creates a cycle of more shame and more circumstances and situations to perpetuate the shames and the beliefs we're now holding about ourselves and our lives. It's a vicious cycle with really many facets, and there's so many different avenues to go down. And this is where taking it on a case-by-case basis and helping an individual to dive into their own unique habits and their own unique shame story is really key, because it's difficult to just kind of paint a whole general picture, because we all come from our own lineage and our own life experiences. But I think the main key here is the internalization of the shit that's happening.
Okay, and that does match up with a lot of the things that I believe and practice. I've just never heard it stated in such a way, and the way my meditations and practice go about that is that we do internalize a lot of things that we don't really need to, and in order to internalize something, you have to have an ego to stick it to. You know, you have to have, like, the ego is this cork board that you're pinning these snippets of shame to. And my practice has been to, I guess, realize that the things I'm trying to internalize, that I'm trying to meld with my identity, don't really meld at all. And the core essence of what I am is so pure that nothing can be stuck to it like that. So the shame wouldn't stick. It's just the image that I'm getting as I'm blending what you're saying with how I understand these processes.
Well, right, and that's why it's a practice, and we're always intending to get to that place where it doesn't stick to us. However, we do have human sides.
Right.
And we are carrying things in our cells on a physiological level, as well as our own life experiences. So it's not as simple to just like, oh, it's not going to stick to me. Or like the little kids, I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever you say bounces off me and sticks to you. And so I really want to get into how this shows up in the physical body, because carrying all of this creates the body armors and the habits and the ways that we're interacting with the world, and it creates immense stress on the body. So you have this physiological response, and there's an energetic component, and there's the ancestral component. So it's coming at us from all angles. Shame predominantly shows up as what I refer to as spiral shame. No, this is not like going down a spiral or anything like that. This is how I refer to the feminine, or that which is in flux. Think of the body. It is transient and ever-changing. It's passive, shifting, impermanent, just like the moon, those lunar energies. We resist aging. We resist our bodies changing. We're ashamed of bodily functions and go to great lengths to hide the fact that we may produce odors or excrete wastes and make sounds we can't control. I think my stomach just growled. That'd be funny if it picked up on the mic. We're programmed to mistrust and dislike that which is in flux. And as humans, and women especially, our very nature is in flux. So even without the added external shame, we're carrying these subconscious beliefs about ourselves. So again, it's coming at us from all angles. And then add to it shit happening. That's another avenue for us to perpetuate these inherent beliefs that, like, there's something wrong with me, I'm shameful. The spiral principle, just to help us understand and kind of recap what we talked about in the previous episode, could be thought of as the feminine, and the triangle principle could be thought of as the masculine. The spiral principle is all that is transient transient, shifting, passive, and cyclical like the moon, and the triangle principle is all that is fixed, structured, active, and linear like the sun. And we've really been taught and programmed to celebrate structure and outward expression and productivity and action. And we view this as safe, while anything that is transient, passive, and changeable is like unsafe and something of which to be weary. I really invite you to visit episode 15, The Mother Wound, and episode 17, where I talked about feminine shame and explored the spiral and triangle concepts in greater detail. My intention is really to get us to think about these things in a deeper and broader sense, where words like feminine and masculine aren't used and these connotations that we hold can't creep into the conversation. So specifically, shame in the body, my favorite stuff. Shame is an emotion, and it is the result of a mental body story, cellular memory from life experiences, ancestral trauma from the experiences of those before you that you're carrying, energetic imprints, and empathically responding to and internalizing the emotions and stories of others. So these are some of the ways that shame can show up for us. The point is, ultimately, it's an emotion. And an emotion is a physiological response in the physical body that registers as such and creates a physical impact. This impact results in dis-ease of some kind when it is an emotion that is not in alignment with your truth, your authentic felt embodied experience of your reality, and when it's an outdated, non-serving thing, imprint that is being carried around by you. In the physical body, shame can show up in a variety of ways, and I'll touch on a few specific ways